General Services Committee. To order.
Take a minute if you want.
Please. Is there any questions on the minutes that's sent to you? Motion to accept them. Ron, second. Lisa, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, no. Carried.
Did you want to start the discussion? Osceola stuff?
Go ahead, Jim.
Okay. We got the RSO, the resolution we have, it's open for discussion for the committee and stuff. Any questions?
Did the superintendent ever get back to us about willing to pay more?
Nope.
We didn't ask them for more either.
Well, they made the statement at the meeting that they were gonna come back to us, and they didn't.
Anybody else? Sheriff,
What's that?
you got any questions or discussions for the RSOs?
No, unless you guys do. Like, where does it stand? I haven't heard where it stands yet, so.
As far as we're gonna put them back on with, the rest of the time, they need to be in, recreation.
Say it again, Chair, I couldn't hear you, sorry.
I said, we're gonna put them back on, that's the discussion, we got a resolution for that. But when they're not working for the school, they're gonna be doing recreation.
Right, they always do, right.
Well, no, they don't, they've been doing everything else, so.
No, they have been, I think if the county manager will just show you the adjusted hours that they show for that, it does.
Okay,
We
but
were looking at the year before, the year there with COVID in play, and I think that the public needs to know that both of those SO officers both had COVID and were in isolation.
okay,
So that's all there, I'll tell you like that, because obviously if it doesn't matter, if it was counting too much. Well,
Well-
now it does, I'm explaining that's where they were, so, yeah, they were doing what they were supposed to do, but they were also in quarantine isolation as well. COVID had, I picked that up, so.
so with them, with the resolution saying they're the work, the recreation, you're happy with that?
Yeah, it would work, sure, yep.
Is there any other discussion?
Jerry, the thing that we discussed about if they're needed on an emergency basis, did that make it in? I didn't get a chance. to
No,
do it
we left it for here, because I had a hard time, relaying what you were saying, and
yet. And
so
I didn't get it, I said I was gonna
If you
reach out, and I
will-
didn't do that, so,
bring it up for discussion here, and then we'll go from there, whether we want to put it in or not.
sure. I'll bring it up when we get to that resolution, so. Or do you wanna do it now?
Well, we're at the discussion.
Okay. So what I had suggested was just because there's always the potential that you might need to pull somebody off of recreation patrol, and I'm thinking for an emergency situation, that notice could be given to the county manager and to the chairman of the board. We're taking them off recreation patrol, this is why. They don't need to wait for permission, but they can just do it, but then we've got a record of why it was done at that particular moment, so there's no questions later on. That was kind of the idea I had, so. And I'm sorry, Ryan, I didn't discuss it with you before, but
Well,
that
it was
makes
late
sense.
when you and I talked.
yeah.
Sheriff, does that seem realistic?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, sure.
Is it just unreasonable, is that what you said?
Realistic, yeah.
No, sure, yeah, yeah, sure, you want to notify, we can notify, no problem with that.
My only question would be, and how do we define emergency? Is it an emergency that would qualify?
So what typically pulls the SROs off of, rec patrol?
Yeah, it could be manpower for the road patrol. It could be an investigation that is gonna take more manpower than we have on the scene at the time, things like that. Somebody's out sick, somebody gets hurt, somebody retires, or somebody quits, things like that.
And I know the discussion we had was emergency is something where there's a clear and present danger to the public in the judgment of the sheriff or whoever, makes that decision. I don't think backfilling, I think if there's somebody who's sick or on vacation, that would need to be pulled from the rest of the road patrol.
Yeah, if we have it, we would do that. We have that, we do that definitely.
Okay.
I got a question for you, Jerry. Nothing's in here mentioned about Copenhagen.
They're separate issues.
So you're not bringing, it's not gonna be brought up,
It's not mixed in this one, we're gonna discuss that one too.
it's
That's,
not even in here listed.
well, we're gonna still discuss it in committee here. and then go from there, so. We were gonna take this issue first and then move to the next one.
So just to just to explain what you guys have in front of you here, which is new today. So, I try to get you things ahead of time, but we had a lot of data to sort through. Previously, I had provided analysis on SRO rec patrol for 2020. As the sheriff mentioned, that year, you could put in the category of a bit of an anomaly. If you go back and look at 2019 and 2018, the percentage of time the school resource officers were spent on recreation, our time spent on recreation was 66% and 68%. So certainly better than the 14% from 2020. So we wanted to make sure that data was present for you guys. I know that, having talked with Jerry and some others, that the expectation is much closer to 100%, but it's fair to say that the 14% from 2020 is more of an outlier compared to the other 2 years. So I wanted to make sure that data was available to everybody to review.
Yeah, but it's still my goal that to justify putting those people on us paying is put them on recreation where we could use them because of safety and everything else. So, they still got hours they can work.
Jerry, I didn't hear you, sorry, what was that?
Sorry, excuse me, I'm a little hoarse. What we got is extra hours that I would like them on the recreation patrol that they haven't worked. And that's part of our discussion, you have worked more hours than when we first saw it and stuff like that, but there's still hours that we can put in. And one of the things is, and I think you realize as we go on, we're trying to build a trail system, and not that you're not doing it, but the more presence we can put out there, the thing is, it, I think, has a tendency to keep people safer, not necessarily writing tickets, but seeing people. Make them think of what's going on, so if they happen to be here today, there tomorrow, whatever, it always keeps people on their toes. I'm not saying you don't write tickets, but on the same aspect, with us trying to build a trail system, I really think it's important, because you kind of hear a little bit from the landowners. They don't feel that we're giving them, kind of a checks and balance to their properties and stuff. So, the more we can put in there, the easier it's going to be for us to build a trail system that's safe for everyone. So that's our goal, and that's the reason. And, putting the RSOs on, I don't think anybody here, I'm speaking for me, but I don't think anybody else, either, and they can correct me if I'm wrong, has a problem with that. It's just that when we put that extra cost in, the thing was, it was to us, it was the right, or me, to put them in recreation and get a little bit more out of them and help, because we gotta make recreation safe for it to go.
Right, I agree. It just to clarify, is that, Joan, how much does the schools reimburse you for each SRO?
55%.
55%, and what is that, how much is that? Just tell us.
On average, I think it was for 2020, the total cost for the SROs was approximately between $112,000 and $120,000.
And then how much did the school reimburse you monetarily, like, what do they reimburse you?
Well,
60.
actually, South Louis was 58 because they were under a grant for each year, and Harrisville paid, I think, 60.
The exact figures for 2020, the total cost of 2 school resource officers is $327,587.
That includes benefits, correct?
Yeah.
So the retirement, everything else.
Everything, total cost to the taxpayer.
So just to break down for the taxpayers again, could you just state what the salary is, the salary, and what the school reimburses to you as a county? I'd appreciate that.
Okay, salary is for one deputy is $60,032. Salary for the other sergeant is $64,504. If you add contractual items,
No, not contractual, then, so now.
well, hold on, why not add those?
No,
That's our
Yeah,
cost.
you can add them in a second, no, it's no problem.
Okay.
Now with those numbers, would you just state what the school now reimburses you towards that 60,000? That's what.
Well,
But that's
hold
not how
on,
the
hold on
contract
just a
is.
second, because to say that the taxpayers are only funding the salary portion is very misleading.
I'm not just
The
saying
taxpayers
that.
are actually
Right.
funding the retirement and the health benefits and everything else.
Correct.
So that is a true taxpayer cost.
Correct, Larry, the reason why I'm asking, I wanted to hear the monetary number for the salary, that's all. I'm gonna get into that next in a minute, but you didn't let me get there yet. You interrupted before you finished, that's what we're trying to get to, but I appreciate what you're saying, because that is true of the benefits. So what is the cost, the monetary of the salary that the school reimburses again back to the deputy?
The school total reimbursed is $58,673.
That was South Louis.
That's South Louis. For Harrisville, it's $60,680.
Gotcha. And then after that, when you do add in, as you say, the retirement, the health benefit, and that it brings up to what then, sir?
The total cost of the deputy at South Louis is $108,883. The total cost for the sergeant at Harrisville is $109,820.
Thank you, appreciate it, thank you.
So total, and you guys got this exact worksheet last month. Total cost of school resource officers, $327,587. Total paid by schools, $179,853. Total cost to county, $147,734.
Thank
you. Which is, as Joan said, 55-45.
So can I ask a question?
Yep.
With these officers working in recreation, how many hours a week do you expect they will be working when they're not at school?
What we've got is,
They basically would work 80 hours every 2 weeks.
Every
2 weeks,
40 hours a week?
and roughly, they got the 11 weeks
Okay,
that they're
thanks.
not in the school and stuff like that.
Thank you.
So, and they do have some time off during, winter breaks and stuff like that, and, you know, if I would, that'd be part of, they'd be on recreation as well, then so. So.
So a lot of the total hours, the standard base hour would be 22,080 hours. Out of that amount of time, we would have available to us for rec patrol 440 hours, or 11 hours, or 11 weeks at Johnson.
Yeah, and so what we did is turn that theoretical math into real math and apply it based on what was actually worked and actual paid time off in 18, 19, and 20. So you're right, it comes out to close to, almost 440, but it fluctuates based on sick time, vacation time, that type of thing.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Committee? Okay, what do we want to do, with the proposal there? Do we want to put something in, and I guess the question is what are we going to narrow it down to that constitute, a true emergency?
Yeah, so the way I would phrase it is just add in a new section that says that recreation patrol officers or officers on recreation patrol may be redeployed to respond to an emergency where there is a clear and present danger to the public upon notice to the county manager and the chairman of the board. That's how I would phrase it.
Okay. Ron, what are your thoughts?
I'm good with that.
Lisa?
Yes.
Dick?
Eventually, we're gonna have to define emergency a little bit with some examples, but yeah, that could be a good one.
Well, couldn't that be,
That's what Ian's definition is.
and couldn't it be when he has to call emergency to me is when you're not operating ordinary, you have to carry extra personnel out to solve the situation.
I would extend it so the way I view it is we're not deploying them would in the judgment of the sheriff lead to imminent harm to persons or property, something along those lines. That's how I would consider it.
It should be sheriff and undersheriff too, probably, because sometimes both of you are making decisions.
Right, whoever's well, I'd say
Even with all
whoever's,
due respect, as you can say that, but it still comes down to my decision, under my authority.
Right.
And that can't be taken away, just so you're aware of that.
sure, but,
Okay.
and I'd say just understand that one of the sections that we have in here, it says, let's see here. The agreement shall provide for the county to have the right to terminate the agreement at any time in the event the county determines that the SRO deputy is not performing county recreation enforcement services for the estimated hours of availability. So my language that I'm putting in there, it creates a possibility that they can be used, and if the hours work out at the end of the year, we can look back and say, well, we had an emergency, we needed to pull them off for 5 hours because, heaven forbid, there's an active shooter situation, something like that, or people need to be evacuated because of an industrial accident. I'm thinking those types of situations. So we leave that option open, but with the understanding that if the intent is not respected, we would have the right to then terminate the position in the future if we need to.
For the SRO position.
Correct.
Well, if that's what you want, that's fine, but remember that, you're not hurting me, you're now hurting the children, the parents, the taxpayers of that school district. See, because that SRO is still a deputy, and will still come back for the road patrol.
Sure, and that's where, well, this is why we need to work together to make sure that we're achieving the purpose of this
That's what I
legislation.
do every day for the county, I still try to work for you guys, you know that.
Okay.
Yep, public's very aware of that, thank you.
Appreciate it. Any other questions or discussions? Anybody else? Okay, then we need to discuss what we're gonna do, if anything, with the RSO for the other school district, Copenhagen.
Very important, did anybody agree with the fact too that we have, that the county is reimbursed through the state with the, through the boat patrol, is that mentioned?
Yeah.
Money goes towards that?
Yeah,
Okay, all right, thank you. Just wanna make
it's,
sure.
correct me if I'm wrong, if you get the hours in, it's like 50% or something like that.
Okay, thank you.
But I don't think that was put into your figures, was it, Ryan? As their salary was being covered partially by the state funding of the boat patrol and
Well,
anything else?
would it be, well, you think we've got other, besides the RSOs, we got other recreation people?
Who?
Huh?
Who?
Part-timers. Right, Sheriff?
Say it again?
Besides the RSOs doing recreation, we also have 3 or 4 part-time people doing recreation too. That's
Yeah, we had 3, we are now down to 2.
2, okay. So essentially that draws off that too.
Yeah, but was still not figured in his salary.
Who?
His salary figures.
Well, it would be hard to,
We're not even talking about the other part-timers. It doesn't make any difference as long as we do 50%. So we haven't even looked at the time for the part-timers.
Oh, I agree, but still, some of that 50% that we're getting reimbursed dollar-wise goes to paying for this SRO position.
If
But that's
you're
not
on boat patrol, if you're not
That's
on,
what I'm saying,
but
Okay,
Greg, think of it this, think about this too. Out of the 2,080 hours that they have as a base hours, we're only getting 440 hours of that. So we're getting 25% of their hours, but we're paying 55% of the salary.
I
So
understand
we're
that.
already at a deficit.
I understand
And
that,
a little bit
but
that we get back from the state for
Marine.
marine patrol, and, the county also kicks in more money for ATV patrol. They're
you still
small.
have to,
They're
you
small.
still have to put all those dollars together. Otherwise, you're not really completing the picture.
well, it would be difficult to match dollar for dollar what comes in from the state to an hour worked by a specific employee. That
Well,
would,
you've got the hour right here.
yeah, I know.
It's 26 and a half hours on Marine by the one deputy for South Louis. And then you have 68 and a half hours by the one in Harrisville. So you must be able, anybody else should be able to take how much money that's bringing back to the county
Yeah, if it's submitted, which, you know, these grants are, the sheriff knows, they take a long time for the submittals to come back in. And also,
It's just getting blown off. Whatever. You don't wanna pay attention to all the dollars that are being generated by that position.
we have pushed in the budget. Nobody has done more to push for that revenue line than me. That revenue line has been pushed up every year in that budget. We assume the state maximum for snowmobile patrol and boat patrol. So we are assuming the maximum. All I'm saying is, it's not included in this analysis because it will be very difficult to know which hour of which employee is being reimbursed by the state. There's caps. And there's no reimbursement for ATV patrol, which is mostly what the legislature is interested in accomplishing.
That goes to the general fund, correct?
Yes.
Yeah, okay.
Eric, do you have the amount, just for the heck of it, in one of the years, either 18, 19, or 20?
I don't, I'm just trying to see if I can log in at the moment and I can try and give them to you.
Yeah, I think when Patty was here, it wasn't all that much money, if I remember correctly.
The maximum you can get for snowmobile patrol in a year, I think, is 28,500.
Right.
And we do our best to try to get that, and it depends on the snow. I mean, I think in the years I've been here, we only hit the max once. Other years we've been as low as like 13,000, 14. You know, Jackie, the
The
max.
problem is too, you can submit for the full amount allowed, but if everybody in the state is submitting for the maximum amount allowed, they only have a set pool of money. So then it's prorated and you only get a percentage.
Mhm.
So I think that's been some of the issue with why we're not getting the full amount.
And that's just for snowmobile and marine. There
Correct.
is, no, we don't have anything set up. for
Marine is unlimited, but snowmobile has a cap. Correct?
Just for Marine, we collected, just brief synopsis, 9,500 in 2019 and 5,600 in 2020.
Yeah, that's what I was.
I didn't think it was that much, yeah.
Trying to get back
And
to.
regardless of how you approach it, I mean, we're putting money in beside that, so what's the difference where it goes, and still.
And you can submit more than just hours to that. I mean, we submit boat ropes, snowmobile gloves. I mean, you can submit all kinds of things to that program.
The vote itself.
I think so.
Well, yeah, we digressed there for a second, so we're back on Copenhagen.
What do we have from Copenhagen as a request? Anything yet? Formally?
Yes, Copenhagen has formally requested a school resource officer. They've contacted me, they've contacted the sheriff. They would like that position to start in September.
With about the same terms as Harrisville and South Louis?
Yes, they're willing to pay the same terms, yeah. Well, let me say it this way, same terms as Harrisville. South Louis is a bit different because they have had a grant, so same terms as Harrisville.
If Copenhagen wants someone, do you have someone for Copenhagen?
We do, man.
Did we ever, discussion about a different, title?
We never moved forward with that, but we have options if we need to. It would be something we would have to talk to the union about adding.
What was the question?
A different title?
School, we've had discussion about school safety officer, which can be the same thing, except it would be a retired policeman or
No, sorry.
law enforcement.
The sheriff's employee of the sheriff's department, but a different title.
Yeah, we have that. We have a school safety officer job description.
I've also done reach out for like a special patrol officer. In other counties, they call them that. So I do have reach out and I've spoken with other counties that do it, but it's just not commonly done because it's just more often done in the schools alone for the same price.
He's still a deputy, that title you can't change, because civil service, he came on as a deputy, he continues to stay a deputy. actual deputy.
Well, if we want to create a new position with that title, we could though.
But he'd still be a deputy.
Well, if he was willing, you're assuming it's the same person. If we create a new position, it could be any person. You get what I'm saying?
Then it wouldn't come from our agency then.
It could, you could have a school safety officer that reports through the sheriff, is just not a road patrol deputy. Has a different,
Well,
Kinda like
but
your-
did he do
so like
the
your
police
civil-
academy?
think of your
he's a
civil,
deputy then, because the New York State Civil Service law, he has to attend the New York State Police Academy for that, from the state of New York.
Right, but they can be retired.
They can be what?
If we, like a lot of other counties use retirees.
Well, that's you confusing the public right now, you see? So let's just clarify that. If you take a road deputy from the sheriff's office, that's not a retired person.
No, that's
Right,
correct.
right, exactly.
But if you
But
are
if you take
taking a
retired
retiree,
person who's now retired, like let's say, no, so somebody retires from the sheriff's office, then you want to bring them back.
just as we do with like our
Correct,
parks
that's
and rec.
correct, but they'd be they'd be retired, then you could change it.
Right,
That's
exactly.
right, but that wasn't said though, I just want to make sure that's
Okay.
clarified, that's all.
That's what the intention would be.
But what would,
That would be what the intention is.
oh, so you don't want a road deputy, you want a retired deputy.
If we were to change the title. It
Well,
would have,
then you wouldn't, then technically then, if you're already retired, he's no longer under my auspices then, so if he's retired, he wouldn't come to me, you have to actually go to that retired.
well, you have other titles in your department, like your civil deputy, like your part-time recreation. I mean, there's other public safety titles that can be used.
And they are still deputies.
No.
Yes.
Well,
See, Mike Levicker is still a deputy.
Yeah, I
He's
get,
retired, but he's still a deputy.
right, but I'm saying, it would be something different that we haven't done here before. You can add a position under the sheriff's department that is a licensed peace officer, and just tell them, here's the deal. You're not getting your job is different, your description is different. You're not a road patrol deputy, you're a school safety officer, and you're gonna make $34,000 a year, whatever it may be. That's typically you wanna be under the 35,000, so you can track.
It wouldn't fall under us and it wouldn't fall under me then.
They'd be a member of the sheriff's office. They'd be on payroll in the sheriff's office.
Not if he's retired. If he's retired, no longer works for me, I don't bring him back. You guys are the ones that you want to bring him back. I'm not bringing a retired person back, no. I'm not doing that. The school's asking for him.
Well, we haven't really gone into depth in this conversation, but the way I understand it is, it could go either way. You could be a person hired by the sheriff's department, or hired by the county, working out of the sheriff's office, or it could be a school safety officer that is a retired policeman, but he's contracting with the school, and he's working the school hours, the school year, as a part-time person, and if that's the way it's set up, he would not be a county employee, he would be a school employee.
That's correct.
Right.
That's correct, yeah. But he's not a retired, in other words, he's not retired working for the sheriff's office anymore.
Correct.
Right.
Did we ever, my understanding was when we first started school resource officers, that if that went away, what happened to the position and the person? Did we solve that question?
Well, we backfilled each time we've added a school resource officer, we backfilled to make sure that road patrol stays whole.
So it would be 2 extra. And they would have the right to go back to where they were because they're more likely seen. And then the 2 retired would be understood. Any other questions? I guess one of the, whichever way we go, price difference, I guess, one of them. And then I guess my concern is if we do the same thing we're doing now, paying the kind of money that we pay, do we have a position like, do we need board and recreation? I'm not sure we do. So that
Well,
kind of
this
creates,
person would only work part-time
if they were retired.
during the school hour, or school year. there wouldn't be another recreation officer in the summertime. It would just be a person that works the
That
school
would-
year
that
in the
would-
school setting.
That would probably be the way to go, and then we don't have the additional cost.
But he wouldn't be a sheriff's deputy.
Which is what the schools wanted.
Right.
Right.
And if you've got, let's get to the real point here, if you've got a sheriff's deputy at Harrisville, and we've got one at South Louis, how can you tell Copenhagen no? Really? But they don't deserve the same same thing as the other school districts get?
Would there be use for a third SRO, Sheriff, would there be use for a third SRO for rec during the summer, or do you think that you have?
Well, I just told you that when you asked me how many people we have part-time, we had 3, we just lost a person, literally. We only have 2 part-time Parks and Rec people, that's it. Besides your regular road patrol for Lewis County. That means that person's now working overtime. Doing nothing to get on the road patrol.
Well, the person you just lost was a retired police officer that came back and was working part-time, correct?
That's correct.
So he was not a full-time road deputy,
Yes, he could be if he wanted to,
but he was not.
but he was not. The difference is, Larry, is that he had the abilities to make a lawful arrest and to enforce New York State penal law.
Okay.
Security guard doesn't have that. Along with many other things they can't do.
But have there been any arrests in the school settings by the SRO officers?
That is something that I can talk about afterward, because you're dealing with juveniles. So, yes, we talk about that off camera.
Okay, we're done. Executive session.
I say to Greg's point, I get where he's coming from, just the idea, we only do it for 2 schools, we don't do it for a third, but then we'd be looking at a 4th and a 5th school. I talked to my board at Beaver River, and none of the kids in my district get any benefit from the SROs, other than the recreation patrol. The school board there said they're not really interested in it, but they're not very keen on funding positions that don't benefit them, so adding another, they're not clamoring for this, they don't want an SRO,
So they don't get one.
right? But they're not,
Their
I'm just
choice.
saying as taxpayers, they're not too keen on the idea of supporting SROs in other schools. You know, we kind of,
Well, that's their choice though, that they've made. And I heard your superintendent, and his poll was of people at the board, people that are on the school board, and the few that were, there was like 15 people total, that was his poll. But if you
they're
listen
saying
to
that as
Doug,
taxpayers,
if
not
you
as
listen
policy.
to Doug Primo, he wouldn't ever want to lose that position. And neither would the superintendent from Harrisville. They say, it's not just that they don't go just stand out in the hallway. They go and actually, go into classrooms and discuss issues and,
No, I think it's,
with
I
all
like the
things
idea.
going on
Yeah.
in this world right now, but if Beaver River chooses not to have it, that's your taxpayers that appointed that board over there.
Right, but.
Because they're making the decision, not
Right,
the
yeah.
taxpayers.
But the thing is, those taxpayers who live in the Beaver River District are paying a portion of the cost to have an SRO in the other schools.
Absolutely.
I'm just saying, that's a tough
But
sell.
they could get the same benefit if they chose to. But your taxpayers in that district didn't even know. Your school board made that decision, not the taxpayers.
Oh, they're elected too.
Well, they're elected, but did they go out and ask their constituents? It didn't sound like it, not from what the superintendent said. They did a straw poll at a board meeting, 15 people.
I think
Really?
they sent an email out to all the parents, but the thing is, they don't get any response on it.
I just look at it as if you don't say something that you don't, then it's really their problem. Lay it back on the school board. They're the ones that really make the decision. Same with, Copenhagen wants it because they've seen what it's done for the other schools. And Loudville says they don't need it because they've got the local sheriff or a local peace officer going in there, which they do is walk through and that's about it.
I think if the schools want them, they should have them.
Yeah.
But I do think that the discussion about how much they pay should be addressed because it is expensive
Expensive,
for the county. But I think that if Copenhagen wants one, I would be in support of that, but like I said,
I think the
Very
standard,
expensive.
I think what you're saying is the standard should be the same in all the schools, and I agree with that, if that's what you're saying. In other words, they'd be a deputy,
oh, I,
be able to perform
Yeah, I
all the duties.
yeah, I think that's getting into the details of it, which we're kind of having a hard time.
Could the safety officer be uniformed? I mean, what can, they can't make arrests, is there anything really they can't do other than making arrests?
We can alter and update job descriptions. What we've had is very similar. But we have a couple other details from other counties that use a special patrol officer that is uniformed through their union,
Through their sheriff's department.
through their sheriff's department. We have.
Caitlin, is a special officer wearing a deputy's uniform, you're saying, actual, it says deputy or police
I can't
representative or
tell you
no?
what it says on their uniform, but I
Right.
can tell you that
The
that's.
security,
They have it through their road patrol union.
to the union.
So it's
So just-
through their sheriff's
Yeah, so
department,
explain what Caitlin's talking about, the road patrol union is
through their sheriff's department.
through the road patrol union, you just said, correct?
It's negotiated, but through the sheriff's department,
Right,
yes.
so
And this
who
is
gets-
only one county that I'm referencing. There's multiple other counties,
Yeah.
for sure.
Right.
And they all have different situations, so what it's allowing us to do is create whatever situation we want to support here. It's just showing us options that we can do, because so many other counties make it work for the school districts and needs of those school districts they have. So it's giving us the platform to do that with whatever our school districts need here,
But
being able
this,
to work on
then you
that.
said again that that is a security officer, correct, through the sheriff's office?
It's a special patrol officer, it's a retired deputy.
There, you said that, correct, it's a retired deputy,
So they
correct?
call it a special patrol officer, it's a retired deputy.
Yes. And does he do the same duties as the SRO, an actual SRO does?
That's my understanding.
You understand?
yes.
Well, that's what I'm asking.
Well,
Does he?
our understanding of what our duties are done here too is very different.
Yes, it is.
We're not
That's
in
correct.
there watching what they're doing.
That's correct. Yeah, what the county taxpayers get here is a far higher level than what you're speaking of. And Mr. Primo,
We don't.
yeah, and Mr.
we don't
Primo
know that.
and the Harrisville superintendent will tell you the same thing, that's what they have here. They're certified in the state of New York under the SRO program too. That's the difference. But I think what comes down to, from the board, my understanding, from the legislature's trying to do is, you're trying to save taxpayers the cost of paying the benefits to those deputies. Am I hitting it kind of closely there? That you feel there's a cost for, Joan, correct, there's a cost for the benefits for the deputies? Is that what's kind of, is
There's a cost, there's a cost.
There's a
Forget
cost.
about whether it's the benefits or the actual salary.
right,
It's about $110,000 a year, as you know,
right,
to put a deputy onto the tax rolls of the county.
right. And I think that's a pretty minimum price to pay for the lives of our children, and the school teachers in those buildings deserve the security and protection on today's day and era, what we see across the country. That, knock on wood, I haven't had Fox, CNN, MSNBC, CBS, and ABC come here to this county. I hope we never do. So I think it's a pretty minimal cost for the safety and security of our children, and of our neighbors that are school teachers and people in the schools. For that cost, I think it's pretty minimal. Just saying.
Well, I would agree with you, but I guess the question in my mind is the higher cost of a road deputy versus a retired deputy worth it? And are the two positions, is it worth that extra cost to accomplish the same thing by someone that can do it at a lesser cost? You know, a retired deputy that only wants to work 6 months a year or whatever it works out to be, will be half of the cost of putting on someone full-time, full year round when school is not in session.
Right. Then,
So-
and I agree with Larry on that part, but then when you come back and ask me to cover the Parks and Recs part of our county, I don't have the extra men then. I don't have that.
Well, in that case, maybe we should, review putting the two SRO officers, in this resolution and start over.
In regards to, you say put two SROs in there, starter, what do you mean by that?
I mean, if you don't have the manpower to do the recreational patrol, then why are we talking about reinstating?
If what you just said, if you were to take
If
away
you
those,
can't meet,
if you were to take away those two SROs, then I wouldn't be able to, that's what I'm saying to you.
okay.
I was listening to HR and stuff like that, I don't know how everybody else feels. I would like to get a good look at our options.
Me too.
The way we're headed right now, I don't think we're gonna be able to make a decision today.
Right, yeah.
I'd
like to see if we can be flexible with what we pay them, the hours they work, what kind of duties they can perform, what they can wear. Because I think we can, there might be a way we can achieve what we want to do and what the sheriff's talking about
I hope so.
with the schools, but not, at the cost that we're talking about for the other, like what we did for the other SROs. And I'll say, and maybe Lisa can correct me, I might be the only one who actually has kids in school, and we'll have 3, in this fall. They're at a school without an SRO. When we drop them off, we're not concerned about their safety. And, it's always, your kid's safety is always in the back of your head. But I do think about what kind of financial burdens are we putting on the community that they're gonna have to think 10, 20 years from now. Are we creating the kind of incentives that my kids would actually be able to live in a community like this, or the tax is gonna be too high? So, there's balancing interests at stake here.
Well, I would just like to say, again, as a bus driver of 34 years, with 72 kids behind me, I didn't have a school resource officer. That was me. I was the nurse, I was the counselor, I was the driver. Let's get back down to reality here. What is fair? You're
And I
worried
think-
about your kids in school where they got a small amount of students in each classroom. But you don't think about that bus driver out there with 72 kids behind them. And Mike Leverker, do you still drive occasionally?
Yeah, I do.
Am I saying anything wrong?
No, you're not.
Thank you.
And I'd say that's a credit to the staff and the quality of the kids, and also the policing that we do.
We don't have anybody. We're out there alone. And the school doors are locked. We can't lock our doors. We have to open and let kids off and on.
Any other comments, questions?
Somebody recap where we are with Copenhagen, just so I know what we're.
Well, I mean, there was
Wait to
some,
hear back.
stuff brought up coming from HR that, not saying they're gonna work, not saying we're gonna do it, but I personally would like information so we can make good decisions.
We have that information.
Well, we got options here that we haven't looked at. I mean,
You're just pushing it
put
down
it
the
this
road.
way, Greg, it's not your committee,
That's true.
so I
But I
appreciate it.
am a legislator, so I
Well, it's
still have.
not here, do it at the public meeting,
No problem.
not here.
I
Sure,
will.
just one more thing, like back to both of you. If you, just like you did before, you could have your security guard, but then I can't use a security guard on Parks and Recs, that's all.
Correct.
So just make sure the people, the taxpayers you're speaking of know that. That once again, I'll state it again, that if you have your security guard for the school, then the sheriff's office can't use him or her for Parks and Recs.
Do you have
Is that
enough
correct?
do you have enough manpower right now to do?
Do
Parks
we have
and
enough manpower?
Rec? To do Parks and Rec?
Well, I'll tell you what, I'm gonna say to you, absolutely not, and you all know that. We have Jackie here, she'll tell you the same thing. We have one of my guys, Mike Leverker, he'll tell you the same thing. If you ask any of your constituents, especially the ones that you talk about that are complaining that we don't have enough enforcement on the ATV trails, they'll tell you we don't have enough manpower. And just one last step, and then I'll be quiet. I pulled the statistic from 2011 for our road patrol that we had. We had 17 people on the road patrol. That includes your sergeants. Here we are in 2021, after 8 years of me trying to explain to everybody our manpower, and now we only have 16 people on the road patrol. So here I am coming to the 9th year as the sheriff of Lewis County, and we have not increased our road patrol.
Sheriff, we gave you that person and you chose to put him elsewhere,
That's not, what are you talking about, Jerry?
one of the investigators.
We told you to put him where you felt he needed to be.
And that's right, and you heard, and I'll say this, you're right. You know the amount of
We didn't do
investigations that
that, so
we
you
talk
would
about
have
in Lewis County
17.
in regards to the sexual assault allegations that we investigate every day here through social services with the children. Now, that, if I were to bring those numbers up, that'd be a little embarrassing to us, okay? That's why we have the investigator review, 2 full-time investigators, which are pretty much kept taking care of those investigations.
Yeah, but it's unfair to say that we took away a position in the budget. You chose to promote the person to a different role.
That was your choice.
To bring the services
Yeah.
to Lewis County, the taxpayers expect.
Yeah, I
So
know,
we're
but
asking right now,
I know, but
that's
it's,
our, yeah, see, well, some can say, we know, we know this, well, let's just call it what it is. That's why I enjoy when you ask me to come. I tell the public like the facts, and the same, I'm open about it. So here I am just telling you that, that's all.
well, the other thing is we have, with regards to the rec patrol for part-time, I know we've created several, we basically have open-ended. You hire as many part-timers for rec patrol as you want. We've told you that many times.
That's not true. We don't.
You've got to have at least 5 or 6 that we have there that are vacant. You have permission to fill.
Sheriff,
How do you go look at the budget?
No, I haven't heard you.
Sheriff, I understand that your emphasis or your priority is road patrol. I'm not sure what the description of road patrol really is, whether it's just driving around looking for speeders or what the actual scope of that position is. But why is it that a person that's on road patrol can't drive some of the roads up on Tug Hill and, incorporate trail enforcement into road patrol scope?
Well, Larry, that's not, I guess you don't know what your men and women in Lewis County Sheriff's Office do, because they do that every day out there. Every day, sir. There's a free moment, they are up in those areas.
Then why are all the towns and the public screaming that there's no trail enforcement?
Larry, also, it's not all the towns and all the public are screaming about it. That's an
Well, that's what
exaggeration.
we hear on this end.
Well, you hear it, sir, from 1 or 2, and then you make it sound to the public that it's several people screaming and complaining. I can tell you, sir, that it is not. And how can I tell you that? Because I travel throughout the county every day and talk to the people. Now, do we
I
have a problem?
represent 5 towns.
I represent.
Every one of my
Very
towns
good.
is very concerned about the lack of trail enforcement.
And how many, sir, how many of those people that you're saying, the 5 towns, how many are complaining? Can you give me those numbers and their names, and I'll gladly address them for you.
All I'm talking to are the town supervisors who are gathering the information from their constituents and complaining to me or us on this board that there is a lack of trail enforcement in this county.
Well, has that been passed
And
on?
we've tried to address that for years and years, and we get nowhere.
Yeah, you do. Yes, you do. It has been addressed, and we do do it.
We're still getting the same feedback from the towns.
Same
that
people?
And it's probably worse.
It's not. I can tell you that.
Back to the committee, we want to go ahead and move the table this so we get further information.
The
The
Copenhagen,
Copenhagen issue. You forward with the other 2 with tables of Copenhagen.
yes.
Yeah, I'm fine with that, but I have another question.
So,
I mean, the pitter patter going back and forth here. I mean, if these people are making complaints, is it just verbal, or are they writing anything down? Or would they be willing to write anything down just to make people understand this is actually happening?
we could ask them to.
I mean, saying something, in a meeting is one thing. A piece of paper with somebody's signature on it is something else.
Well, I think it's a mixture of both. People call in the sheriff's department and voice a complaint there. I hear it back from my town supervisors verbally. I can't recall if I've gotten any specific emails, but it's mostly verbal, What are we doing about trail enforcement? This board has been resolute in trying to address the problem for years at this point, and we can't seem to get there.
Not to prolong this discussion, but can you just elaborate on why you were laughing about the part-time filling them? What's the part-time rec that you have open
Yeah, because
positions?
we
You don't
have
have,
three positions allotted, that's it, that's all we have.
you have 3 positions
Yes.
allotted
And like I said, that's all we have.
and they're filled?
They were.
So
We
they're
have
not,
one open now,
okay,
and not by any,
Somebody's on the resource
choice.
officer.
So Eric, can you look up how many part-time, road patrol positions we allow in the budget?
What's five?
Not road patrol, it said parks and recs.
So park and rec is not, it's not by position, it's just an amount that can be spent on parks and rec for the Schedule 5. So
So
total.
are we counting the
Yeah.
school resource officer in that
Well,
number?
we can put a resolution together. And,
Are you?
We could do a resolution to
School
create,
resource officer in that number?
No.
No, so there'd be four,
There's just
three, then two more.
And then two parks and rec, and the 2 resource officers.
It's-
I'll make a motion that we, go ahead and, allow the sheriff to hire as many part-timers as he's needed to help with the recreation.
He's
I'll
got
make-
five
I'll
right
make
now.
that a motion.
you can have as many part-timers as you want. The amount in the budget is what matters. So if you've got, you know, 40, I think $60,000 there.
Correct.
$60,000, and I don't have the budget in front of me, but $60,000 to spend on rec patrol, and it takes 13 guys to cover that 60,000, or 4 guys to cover that 60,000, it doesn't matter to us. You know, and by the way, if you need more than that, we have increased that in the budget every year you asked for rec patrol, every year, that you guys have wanted more, we've done more rec patrol. We have not increased on the other things, but rec patrol, yeah, and I think you go back through the years and look at that.
Let's take a look, that's true, we will.
It sounds like we don't need to do that then, right? We can already hire as many as he wants, is that correct? Just
Well,
within the budget.
let's do it, and then it's here in front of us again if we missed it. I know we have, but my motion is to tell on the floor.
I'll second that.
Now, you just, so the
Favor,
public
aye.
knows, when you say that, the hiring part-time people, they have to be police officers, you're aware of that, right?
I don't think you'll hire me and I'm a nurse, so yeah.
What's that?
I said, well, you're not gonna hire me, I'm a nurse, so
No,
yeah,
we-
that's implied.
We are
Yeah, it's gotta be a
aware of that.
police officer.
Yep.
So it means they have to be somebody that's already working in another agency, and then they work in their off-duty time.
Right.
Or they can be retired, come back.
If they still hold their police duties. You know, the 1 year, once, so we can explain to the public, so the public gets the correct information. When an officer retires, they have 1 year to come back to a part-time job. If they go past the 1 year, they now lose their police certification. You're no longer a police officer anymore in the state of
So
New
what's
York.
it take to get reinstated at that point?
What's that?
What do they have to do to get reinstated?
You can't, you're done.
That's it,
That's
forever?
it, done. Yep. Caitlin, would you speak up to that in regards to, you understand a little bit, that they, you
On
know
the
about that,
police
right?
law, I cannot speak up to that because of what I have in front of me is not, I cannot speak to that
Oh, you
without
can't?
looking it up.
Oh, okay,
I would want to look that up to confirm or deny that.
Okay, all right.
I
It
do not
seemed
know
to
the
me
police
that
law.
somebody retiring would be anxious to continue their credentials by working part-time, even if it's 2 hours a week.
Larry, you know what? I would agree with you with that if it wasn't the current situation we are within our country today. You can't get people to come to this job anymore thanks to the politics.
Well, you can't get people to come to work anywhere, so you're
Then whose
right
fault
in
is
line
that?
with the rest of it.
So according to the budget, we have 5 part-time positions currently available for Parks and Recreation. You're saying you had 3, now you got 2, right? So you have already had authority to get 2 more. So now you got authority to get 3 more, and Jerry's saying, well, it doesn't matter if you get 15 more, you know, cover as many hours as you can under the budget we've got.
And like I said, if you're trying to find people to come to do that, it's
It's a different
really
thing.
difficult. Yeah, that's really difficult.
That's what we're voting on, right?
Quick question on the
Thanks for clearing that up.
Sheriff, on the SRO position, does that by seniority or how is it? Do you get to, what deputies apply for that?
That is through a process that we do within our office. Interview process.
Seniority?
No, not at all. No, not by seniority. Qualifications.
Okay.
Qualifications.
Okay, back to where we were. I made the motion, it was seconded by Eon. All in favor, aye?
Aye.
I guess I'll say aye. I don't know what else
Dick,
to
what do
say.
you think?
Restate the motion, please, and I hate to say that, but
Well, what it is, the sheriff said he could only hire so many, so let's give him a motion, so if he finds people, he can go ahead and do it. Hire as many as he needs to help him with the job,
up to the budget.
Up to the budget.
budget amount.
Right, okay, that's the part I was missing.
Okay.
Thank you.
One more, all in favor, aye?
Aye.
Opposed, nay? Okay. So we tried to help you out, Sheriff, if you
Appreciate
find
it.
some extra ones.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Okay. Any other questions or discussions? Y'all ready to go back to dockets then?
Are we gonna do the,
There's another,
ATV local law discussion.
this will be
Yeah.
quick, Jerry.
For more information.
You voted on it?
Well,
I'd just like to see us get through Copenhagen's issue so that when it comes September, we've got a solution. So I'd just like to see that
Well, I'd
by
like to,
tabling it, it doesn't put us to where we don't have a solution.
Well, I think we're tabling to gather some information and
Well, I think-
job descriptions to.
I think that discussion needs to be had with the sheriff because the other county I'm referencing has an agreement with their sheriff's department. So it would have to be in conjunction with him. So I'd want to get and have a meeting with him to go over it all.
if we can, yeah, better understand
Yeah.
and see what we can and can't do.
Absolutely.
Well, I expect it to be here in a couple of weeks.
I can,
You
absolutely.
feel you can get the information to us in a couple of weeks?
Absolutely, yes.
And good, bad, or indifferent, we're not trying to hold it up, we're just trying to make good decisions with what information we get, what we can and can't do, and what's the right thing. And if we have to have a special committee meeting, I have no problem.
Yeah, I like that. I just don't want to see us get beyond the September date with them because we can't get information.
I would expect it to have us quite a little bit before then, so we can make a decision.
And
So everybody in favor?
Yeah, let me ask the sheriff one question first. How long would you need to fill if the SRO at Copenhagen went under your control and was a deputy and stuff?
How long will it take you to refill the road position?
No, how long would it take you to fill the SRO position?
As soon as you need it, we can do it.
Then you backfill if it came out of road.
We will backfill the road patrol, correct? Yes, sir.
You said you've got someone lined up already for the SR.
We do.
Okay.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, I'm all set.
So are we ready for dockets?
are we gonna talk about?
There was another
Go ahead, I'm
presentation
sorry.
there. Jerry, if maybe I could just start that off. After we met with some of the towns on the event permit matter, the chairman asked us to look at the event law and see if there were some changes we could incorporate to address some of the concerns of the town. So Tim Hunt and Jackie and I met to go over it. And before you have a draft of the summary of what we're looking at and some of the items that we think we could address in the local law by an amendment to it. One being that we would change the name of the local law to include town roads or other town properties for any of the towns who might want to opt into the law, similar to what the 12 and 13-year-old hunting law was from the state. And we would then enter into an IMA with each of those towns to make sure that they would have the Lewis County AT permits applied to their roads, their open roads under the road for ATVs. The towns, we all discussed that the current law having a 250 threshold for when somebody has to apply for a permit under the event law was problematic this year. So we broke that down. We're proposing to break that down to it being a motorized event, which you have to get a permit for 50 or more. and non-motorized events would be 150 or more, so that small gatherings, a wedding or something, wouldn't necessarily apply. And we would still want to keep the discretion to waive that requirement, especially for small non-motorized events. We're proposing maybe changing the insurance requirement, especially for motorized events, because all those motorized vehicles have insurance, so we wouldn't necessarily make the sponsor have to hold another large amount of insurance unless it's a very big event over a course of a lot of properties. We also would increase the fines and break that down into a couple of categories where a fine for not applying for the event permit for non-motorized events would be $50 to $500, depending upon how big it was. And for motorized events, the fine would be much greater for not getting the application in and the permit. It would be $500 to $1,000. And in addition to that, for a motorized event, we would want a $5 for each registered participant. And that money would go into a fund that would be distributed amongst the towns that are participating. So we gave you the draft. Our intention is to meet again on it, talk with some of the town highway supers who attended the first meeting we had and get some more feedback from them, and then maybe bring to this committee the actual amended proposed law for you to take a look at.
Joe, I have a question on the law enforcement part of that. So what you're saying basically is then that on a weekend when Lewis County has, let's say, upwards between 800 to 1,000 riders, which happens on holiday weekends, and there's not an event, but yet 800 to 1,000 ATVs show up, and there's 500 of them parked outside an establishment. That does happen. It's usually a couple hundred. It could be as high as 500 times. I mean, Monty used to have, at least 300 to 400 ATVs, snowmobiles, anything like that, motorized outside their business. Would they be fined then for not having a permit for an event because you're gathering 200 and some or 300 people? What's the,
If they didn't
What's
put
the
something on, because they're not sponsoring an event, they're not putting anything out there saying, we're holding a poker run or whatever it is.
So that business, because they're open to serve alcohol and food, and they're attracting 300 or 400 people, they're not gonna be held, have to get an event permit then.
No.
But a person who wants to have an event that would benefit the county already by buying permits, by going to the restaurants and the bars and tax and permits, right? They have to pay an additional fee for that, you're saying, they have to have a permit for it, correct?
If they're gonna hold an event, yes. Because the whole point of the sheriff is so that we know what events are going on and the towns know what events are going on so that they can call law enforcement, they could alert their highway people, they could alert EMS if it's a big event or something like that, so that we know what's going on. The permit fee application, by the way, is $20. It's not a big number. It's more that we want to know what's going on for any organized special event.
So in the wintertime, then when we have up to 2,000 sleds on top of the hill, and I don't have the heads up on that, or I don't get a chance to pre-plan anything for my for our department. We just respond as needed or continue to do that. Yeah. So it's kind of
It's an event, if somebody is sponsoring and holding an event, that's what we want to know about. If a group of people just decide, oh, the weather's supposed to be great this weekend, let's go up snowmobiling, we can't really deal with that, except that law enforcement may be able to. If you're doing periodic patrols, you're gonna know there's a hell of a lot more people up here, maybe we need to have a couple more guys up here.
yeah. So that's what I'm just saying. It's kind of it's one of these issues, right? Because
But the more we know about scheduled events,
Mhm.
the more we feel that the towns and the county can be prepared for it.
I would have to put a different outlook on that from the outside. I know if I was a business owner, I was planning an event, it's more of to have that the county has a little more control of that event to say whether you can have it or not then. Is that a little more correct? In other words, they feel that, that the highway superintendent or that the county feels we don't have enough EMS or we don't have enough sheriff patrol, you could say, Yeah, we're not gonna, you can't have your event because of that. Is it more of a safety, like a stopgap thing
I
for
don't
that?
think any of us are really trying to do it to stop an event from happening.
Right.
But more so that we can properly address what's gonna be going on the roads.
So,
Like parking, like instead of restricting parking to one side of the road, so you're not blocking traffic, you know, so emergency management can get through. It's just making sure that the ducks are in a row.
You know, there's times, Sheriff, and you know this, you understand. There are definitely times, the county population is 27,000. There's times in one day, our population goes up 20 to 30% just due to recreational traffic.
yes.
I think it's absolutely appropriate that the county knows when those days are and can prepare. I mean, we've had infrastructure get beat up over the last couple of years on some of these town roads because we didn't know when the events were, we didn't know where they were gonna be. And we've had instances where we weren't completely prepared as we could have been, I think you might agree, with patrol and public safety. So knowing about the events ahead of time is gonna help us. You know, I think what we want is a sustainable trail system. I mean, you talk about the business owners, what's gonna be good for them is if, you know, all the landowners that contribute to this trail system don't get fed up and shut off their lands. We have to have, you know, a sustainable system to keep this going, or else the whole model is gonna fall apart. And from what I've been hearing from some of the towns, and Larry hears some of the towns, there's several of the towns that are about fed up. So we need to make sure that we are really keeping our finger on the pulse on what's going on up there, and that's kind of what the goal of this is.
And I agree with you on that, but that's not what they're fed up about, is not the people coming, it's where they're able to go and where they're able to ride. And that's different, you know.
Right. So we should have patrol telling them not to go certain areas.
Right, but when we know what they are, that's what we do out there. But it's just, I just find it very interesting because we used to have a thing called a mow-down, and like I said, once again, my manpower isn't increased for that. We handled it for several years, where there's up to 4,000 individuals with approximately probably 6,000 to 7,000 vehicles, including not just the people that participated, but vendors and everybody. And between myself, emergency management, Mr. Tiss, and those places, we did pretty damn good, and I know much of the businesses really benefited from that. And there was always complaints about, you know, these guys went out and they, you know, they got high or they got blood dope and everything. And we did really well back then with the attorney's office. We're confiscating a lot of drugs and paraphernalia, and getting some excellent, you know, reimbursements back from that, from the federal government as well. And that was really coordinated without a whole lot to have to pass another new law to have somebody pay a permit fee. 'Cause I thought that was already in place because of the mow down. We used to have to do a study that the person had to pay a fee already for that. So I was just asking questions. I'm interested myself to find out the facts on that.
The key was you knew mow down was happening every year though, right? And
Yeah, we knew the mow down was done in because they came and called everybody.
Right,
And
that's
they
what
had
we're
to,
trying to.
and they had to buy a permit too, like, they had to file for a permit,
So
correct?
that's, well, I don't know.
Public health permitted.
Department of Health, they did.
But so that's exactly what we're trying to do. You pay $20, you get your permit, we know when the event's going on, so we can prepare for it. That's all we're doing.
Bob, did you have something like that?
Yes, if it's over 5,000 people, they have to file for a mass gathering permit.
Right.
And prior to the past two times that they had it, they were over 5,000 people, so they had to get a mass gathering permit. So they had to get a bunch of people together, and that meant that I would have to sign off on the entire thing to ensure that there was appropriate EMS, that there was appropriate fire separation between the camping areas, et cetera. And the sheriff would have to sign off on that as well. In the past couple of years, it's been under 5,000 people, but as a courtesy, they reached out. And it wasn't a formal mass gathering permit, but there was an increased awareness of what was going on. So if that's the intent of the law, I believe that it's an appropriate direction. I'm just a little disappointed I wasn't even asked to come to the table on that. That's my 2 cents.
No one was.
And that $5 fee, and correct me if I'm wrong, Jim.
So I just thought.
I mean, essentially,
That's all.
what happened, or why the $5 fee is that some towns had some severe road damage, and they don't have it in their budget to repair the roads 5-6 times a year. So that's what that'll be used for, to help them mainly maintenance of the roads that potentially were damaged by the heavy traffic.
The $25 fee you're saying?
No,
No,
Oh,
the $5 fee.
Authorized access would have a $5 per person charge, and that money would be split amongst the towns.
okay. Now, you do the same thing for snowmobiling then, because yeah, I know there's also been complaints where they made ruts across several state and county roads too as well. Yeah,
For all events.
All motorized.
all motorized events.
So people coming to Lewis County will have to pay an extra $5 on snowmobiles now to ride up here
If
too?
it's
or
an event.
Just an event?
Event, this is an event.
Oh, okay, event.
Where
It's not
somebody
per
sponsors.
person, it's the organizers who pay.
So that's the update on that. We'll
And
probably be
I'd like
meeting
to
again.
add a stipulation to number 2, in that parades are exempt.
The only question I had, we were talking about
Are
foregoing
exempt or
insurance.
waive the application fee,
Um,
because they still need to be notified. Because traffic needs to be stopped.
I'll clarify that.
From the fee.
we were talking about not charging insurance. I guess the question is if the sponsor has it and you put it on the personal vehicle, if you can't find that person, nothing gets collected. So if you put it on the person holding the sponsor and damage gets done, they can at least collect from it. Am I wrong in that?
Well, so the sponsor, you're saying the sponsor's gonna have some general liability insurance
Well, sure.
to begin with, right? So
What
I
trying,
think what we're gonna do, what we need to do is have some discretion here to look and see what kind they have, how much they have, and whether or not we feel that that's sufficient in the event.
there's something we can draw on.
Right.
But not just tag, it's great if you can catch the person doing it.
Right,
But if you don't, the damage is still there.
yeah.
And that's not gonna protect the towns that have the damage. So that was my only question.
Okay, so we'll look into that a little more too.
Committee, any other questions or discussion?
Yeah, how does this new law we're working on work with the Cheese Festival?
It's not a new law, we're just.
Revamping what we've got. How does that work with that? Because they, to my knowledge, they don't,
They're not on county roads, first of all, that's all state and village roads.
okay.
So,
Well,
I don't know.
Well,
if
they
town-
get here somehow, they don't walk. That's my, you're gonna have vehicles for people coming to those. And I'm all for the Cheese Festival, just bring it up so this doesn't throw a wrench in something.
I would say we're talking about adding towns who wish to be added to the law, and they could probably at that point make an
They can opt in
exception.
or out then.
Or either opt in or opt out, or make an exception for cream cheese or something like that.
Okay, good.
Everybody satisfied with what we got so far? Any questions or further discussion?
There's gonna be a little more on this.
They're supposed to take it back to the towns. and
Bob's gonna be involved.
Yeah, let's
Bring
send
it
them a
back
copy
to
of
us.
it. See your feel, Bob.
Well, Bob was involved in the original one, this is just amendments, and I apologize that you got left out of that discussion, just, we were looking to, the towns that, rather than have 5 towns come up with their 5 different event permits, we were trying to create an umbrella that everyone could sign on. I think that was one of the major
Yeah.
issues, and we weren't really readdressing the basic picture. I'm not trying to change the law, we just add some exceptions. But we will be including.
So can I ask a question?
Yeah.
Even though I'm not on this committee, you want us to take this to our towns? You want us to take this to our towns?
Yeah,
I'm
Now
just
or
checking,
later?
making sure.
you're welcome to ask any questions.
No, that's quite all right. I won't ask you.
Greg, I will say, that we've had one meeting with the town supervisors and town superintendents.
Yeah,
Both of your towns were here.
Yeah.
And both of them were interested in signing on to
And then,
County
yeah,
policy.
county policy.
Right.
Yeah, absolutely, I know, I was there, they're still pressured, they're still asking me. I said, well, it's gonna take some time, it's not something you can just snap your finger and change, so I'll take this back to them and let them look it over. But Terry Tiss already passed it, they passed it last meeting, their own event law. Because you didn't know how long it would take us to come up with,
No, actually, you already had it in the works before his town. It had nothing to do with him waiting for us.
okay. No.
I'm waiting to get sidetracked here. We're done with this, right? Everybody's happy with it?
Yeah, hope so.
So we're gonna send it back for further discussion with the towns and stuff. Everybody good? Yep. Okay. All right. Now, are we ready for dockets?
Okay, the first one is resolution authorizing a modification to the agreement between the County of Lewis and Fourth Coast, Inc., St. Lawrence Engineering, DPC, to provide additional professional services on the PSB boiler replacement and upgrades to the HVAC system for an extended period through October 31st, 2021, not to exceed 10% of final project costs, with the additional services to be paid based upon hourly rates set forth in the agreement, with monthly invoices containing detailed descriptions of the time and nature of the professional services provided.
What was the 10%? You remember, right?
Well, the total project that we put in the budget was 800,000. I believe we've already paid them 20,000, so we've got a leash of around 60 left. But the reason we want to go hourly is because we really need to work hand in hand with two groups. The Department of Corrections, and two, Siemens or Train, I forget which one, Train, I think. But, it's not quite as cut and dry a project as we thought. So we're going to try to kind of figure it out together as a group, and then pull together a final design. So that's kind of the thought process.
Any other questions or discussions? All in favor, aye?
Aye.
Opposed, nay? Carried.
Okay, the next one is resolution authorizing work order with TK Elevator Corporation to replace and install a new elevator door in the courthouse at a cost of $29,358.60.
Is there any questions? Is this all doors or just one?
This is, well, we only have one. Well, that's what we do have here, right? I'm sorry, yes.
We do have four.
I don't know how elevators work. Matt, you can probably answer that.
Yes, it's the door controls on the front of the elevator, so.
Okay.
They are original to the unit, vintage 1950. They do not make parts for those anymore. We are biding our time with that, with those parts. If they go bad, it would put the elevator down for an undisclosed amount of time.
So just in full disclosure, we had put this in the budget around $20,000. We got a verbal ballpark estimate around budget time last year. Matt had asked for a specific quote. We couldn't get the quote by budget time, so we just plugged in 20, and obviously the quote came back, 29. So it is more than what we had originally planned for in the budget, but still a good project, and we can certainly fund it, so.
Any other questions? All in favor, aye?
Aye.
Opposed, nay? Carried.
Resolution to rescind resolution number 284-2020 and appoint Timothy Hunt of Wobble, New York as Lewis County Highway Superintendent with a corrected 4-year term expiration date of November 16th, 2024.
We can extend the existing one. The one was already serving. We thought we could and appoint him for the full time. So when somebody resigns, like in highway, we've got to appoint him for the new 4-year term.
So all in favor, aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Carried.
Resolution to appropriate funds in the county machinery accounts for additional revenue received from surplus equipment sales in the amount of $204,500.
Any questions or discussions? All in favor, aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried.
Resolution to appropriate funds in the county road accounts for annual CHIPS program additional revenue in the amount of $474,299.
Questions or discussions? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Carried.
Resolution to accept New York State grant awards for $50,000 in a countywide housing needs assessment and market analysis under 2020 CDBG community planning and $85,000 from New York State EFC to reimburse qualified property owners up to 50% of eligible costs of septic system projects and approve the budget appropriations in the planning department accounts for these two separate programs.
Any questions, discussions? All in favor, aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Carried.
Resolution authorizing agreement with Camoin 310 LTD of Saratoga Springs, New York to provide economic development consulting services to the county in analyzing the data and information obtained from the JCC survey results on UTV and ATV activity in Lewis County and the neighboring region, culminating in a report on the economic and fiscal impacts of UTV and ATV activity as set forth in its proposal and scope of work dated May 12th, 2021, at a cost of $10,000 with funds to be taken from the Planning Department's Community Development Fund account line.
Questions or discussions? All in favor, aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Carried.
Resolution to authorize agreement with Snorak LLC DBA Commute with Enterprise to provide vehicles for the county's public van pool pilot program in accordance with the specifications and requirements set forth in the RFP for the period on or about July 7th, 2021 through December 31st, 2022 for the monthly costs submitted on the bid matrix based on vehicle need.
Questions or discussions? All in favor, aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Carried.
Resolution authorizing renewal of the software maintenance agreement between the Lewis County Probation Department and Automon LLC for the technical support services for the probation case management software for the term commencing August 14th, 2021 for 12 consecutive months and may be extended by mutual written agreement for the parties at a cost of $6,217.79 with a 2021 COVID discount of $296.05 applied to the licensor for Case Load Explorer software.
Any questions or discussions? All in favor, aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Carried.
Resolution authorizing New York State Consolidated Funding Grant application by Department of Recreation, Forestry, and Parks to purchase a 70 horsepower tractor with implements for development of 7 new additional miles to the ATV trail system in the town of Gregg.
Questions or discussions?
We want to buy Jackie a tractor. Have you seen her car lately?
Stop. You sound like my husband.
That's under a grant application. I assume she doesn't get it, she doesn't buy them.
We'll put a brush guard on it.
My husband says skitter blade.
Is there any other discussion? All in favor, aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Passed.
Resolution to approve a one-year agreement between the Lewis County Sheriff's Department and the Harrisville Central School District to provide a deputy sheriff to serve as a school resource officer for the period commencing on or about September 7th, 2021 through June 30th, 2022. And we will include the motion that was made by Ian with the language for a separate section on the resolution that gets presented in July.
Okay. Any questions or further discussion? All in favor, aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried.
Resolution to approve a one-year agreement between the Lewis County Sheriff's Department and the South Lewis Central School District to provide a deputy sheriff to serve as the school resource officer for the period commencing on or about September 7th, 2021 through June 30th, 2022. And again, we will have the separate section that was approved through the motion made earlier.
Any questions or discussions? All in favor, aye?
Aye.
Opposed, nay? Okay. We have, I don't know, you had a late one?
Yep, so the next one is resolution determining CDBG housing needs assessment and market analysis constitutes a type 2 action as defined by the regulations promulgated under the State Environmental Quality Review Act, SECRA, of the state of New York, that the project will not have a significant impact upon the environment and that there is no further procedure required under SECRA.
Any questions or discussions? All in favor, aye?
Aye.
Opposed, nay? Carried. I have, 4 motions. Motion to authorize buildings and grounds Supervisor Matt O'Connor to put out an RFP for driveway repair on the Osceola Tower site. I'm making that a motion.
I'll second.
Ron? All in favor, aye?
Aye.
Opposed, nay? Carried. Motion to authorize Highway Superintendent Timothy Hunt to put out an RFP for snow plowing services on all county-owned parking lots. I'll make that a motion. Second. Lisa?
Dude, how much is that gonna save us? You know?
Won't know until we get it back in.
Right, or do we have just a frame? I mean, I don't know how much do we spend plowing or, cause I guess that's the idea, right? We're trying to cut costs.
Nothing's obligating us to actually go forward. We're just trying to get some numbers
Just
to
an idea.
evaluate where we stand.
Okay.
Well, I think we can put a little finer point on it than that for Ian's question. I believe, Tim, just from memory, that we have 3 men that are doing parking lot work. So if they're not coming in early, because with the contract, our workday, even in the winter, starts at 8:30, ends at 5:30. If they have to come in at 4:30 to plow, that's almost automatic overtime every time it snows. So the thought would be to try to alleviate some of that overtime, and you could potentially use, a bigger rotation on plow road routes. So, it would kind of save us money on overtime.
So there's,
But we don't know, we've got to see what these RFPs come back at and see if it's worth it.
so the assumption is this is gonna be a current county employee probably doing this?
No.
No.
We're bringing out the RFP to see if the private sector can do it cheaper. We did that with the JCC parking lot, and it turned out to be a lot cheaper. So why not try it with all the parking lots?
What about
And
DSS?
mowing. I know they want to do mowing. What?
What about DSS's parking lot?
That would be
Because that
included
can't
as
be
well.
sanded.
Right, that would be included as well.
They know how it's supposed to be properly.
We'll have to put that specification in the RFP.
Because otherwise,
Yeah, the permeable pavement, you can't sand the permeable pavement. So, yeah, we'll have to put all those specifications in the RFP. So, and I think, we talked about doing a similar thing for mowing, but, we want to do that probably winter of this year to see what we can get for spring of next year. So we'll bring that back up again.
so
Yes, I think so, yeah. Hospital is a big portion of that, so.
So what's gonna happen to the 3 employees?
They will report to work at 8:30, or they can rotate through the plowing, which would, save us overtime. 7:30, I'm sorry, 7:30.
Any other questions or discussions? Okay, all in favor, aye?
Aye.
Opposed, nay? Carried. Okay, a motion to authorize planning director Cassandra Beal to put out an RFP for housing needs assessment. I'll make that a motion. Lisa?
Any questions or discussions?
What's the desired outcome to this?
Find out what the needs are, it's under here.
I don't know, we've got about 15 CDBGs going, so Cassandra.
We hope to be able to use the information from multiple agencies to be able to plan for housing facility developments in the area, if it's even realistic, if it's economically advantaged for our area, and where to invest in housing infrastructure.
Okay.
So it'll be used by all sorts of different agencies and regional.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? All in favor, aye?
Aye.
Opposed, nay? Carried. Motion to waive the $20, ton surcharge fee on waste sludge for the village of Loudon with respect to phase 2 upgrades of their sewer plant. We've done this before. I think it's the right thing to do for them. We have a second.
I'll second.
Any questions or discussions? All in favor, aye?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried.
Jerry, I do have one more item. Everybody on your desk was given a change order from the solid waste expansion project. Kind of not surprising that the other contractor, so we have two contractors, the general contractor and the electric contractor. The electric contractor is saying, hey, my prices also went up and would like the same treatment that was given to the general contractor. He did propose an alternative that would make the change order neutral, and that alternative is to go with aluminum wire into the building and then aluminum wiring throughout the building. Jerry and Dick, have said that aluminum is not an acceptable substitute, and they're willing to pay the change order to keep copper. The price of copper wire per foot, when the job was bid in February, was around, I'm forgetting, but I think it was around $7.50, $8, and now it's up to as high as $12, $13. So that's the difference. And the quote, all that information is in the packet. So.
The only issue I have is that copper, along with other commodities, are now dropping. So by the time they get ready to use this copper, it may be more in the realm of what the cost was when you bid it. So,
Or it could go the other way, if something else happens.
and I don't think it's gonna go that way because we've already peaked and they're running out backside of that, so.
So it's a change order, so they are under contract to do the job. So we can wait until they have to order the equipment and get the exact amount if you want.
That'd be my preference.
Well, it's either that, or could we put an amendment in there if it's less than that?
Sure. They have to show us the invoice when they have to anyway. So if they show us the invoice when they purchase it and as long as it matches what we've agreed to, then.
Again, what I'm really interested in is the guy that did this, the subcontractor that did to them to provide this material. And I don't see that in here, although I haven't looked through it all.
I think it is. I think the original, the quote is in there, isn't it?
I'm just looking through it quick, because we just got this.
Yeah, no, I know. Well, I just got it, so
Yeah, no.
I just didn't want to wait another month, we only get committee once a month, so. If it's not there, Dick, we can certainly request it, and they should have to provide that, yeah.
You had 10.20 per foot at the bid date,
There you go.
and then now it's 17.
There you go.
From the same place both times.
I'm looking at, it's the proposed change order, and it says itemized breakdown on it, so.
Does he have the backup fee in to that? I don't have one.
We can request the backup. By the time it becomes a full resolution for the July meeting, we'll have all that in order. And also, I think we can make it clear to them that we're gonna wanna see the invoice once it's been ordered, so that we can match that.
I'm comfortable with that.
You good with that, you said? Anybody else? Good, so, when we get the resolution, we want the resolution to reflect that. Okay. All in favor, aye?
Aye.
Opposed, nay? Carried. Question, you're gonna work on this stuff for the committee, get it out as quick as you can.
Absolutely.
Okay. Did we come up with anything on, whether we need to do more for, laws in our policy?
So Jerry had asked, and we've talked about this a couple times, and Ward and I have chatted about our property maintenance and junkyard laws. I think there's continued interest from the legislators in tightening that up. So there's a couple things we can do. One, and this is rather specific, Jerry, to the property in your district, but the debris and trash situation is not a junkyard. That's a statewide property maintenance. So that falls under statewide property maintenance code. Junkyard, however, is our local law, and we do have control under that. The question would be, should we stiffen up the penalty? We just stiffened it 2 years ago up to $250. We could stiffen it again. And the other question is, and something that Ward and I talked about, is we currently have 2 vacancies, or 3, or 2 or 3 on the junkyard review board. 3 vacancies on the junkyard review board. So now is a good time to think about that whole situation again, as long as we're gonna be asking more volunteers to help us with that, so.
I think I'd like to consider bringing it in-house.
Okay,
Jerry, could you say that again? I didn't hear you.
I think I'd like to consider bringing the junkyard review board in-house.
In-house.
What is that?
One of these committees will be the one they got more good contact with and see what they want to do and stuff.
So you're talking about disbanding the junkyard review board and having a
Well,
legislative committee deal with it?
we can let people think and have that to continue in discussion next month. See
Yeah.
what we do.
we'll have to set up a more informed discussion where we can really lay out, the way things are now, and then maybe, spitball some ideas.
I mean, here's the bottom line. I mean, when we start something, we're supposed to get it cleaned up. And it looks worse than one before we start. So I guess 2 questions I have. If we're not gonna follow through and leave it better than we found it, we're just gonna make a bigger eyesore, then maybe we shouldn't be doing any of this. And how long is this gonna drag on? I mean, we've got wood there. My understanding is, I don't even know, Ward here?
Yeah, I'm right here.
Is he applied for the junkyard permit? Yeah, that was supposed to be an understanding.
Rouser?
Yeah,
Now,
Rouser,
no, Rouser.
Rouser was supposed to move all the vehicles back to the back end, and she hasn't, but we got pulled off that site. So basically for security, our safety, the workers, the county workers' safety. Now, I can hear you, but I have a right to be safe when I'm on that property. I am a county employee.
Well, we were
We said
supposed to
we can't-
schedule stuff where we had a meeting,
I know.
because the thing is that we have a tendency to get stuff started but not follow through. I'll go there with you, I'll stand with you, or if not, they do make typewriters and letters. You can send them that information through registered mail if I'm not
Well,
wrong.
we do. It's set certified and uncertified.
It's getting to be about time to clean it up one way or the other. That's all I'm saying.
The issue is, we need to enter onto that property to move those vehicles. And what the question is, does a county employee do that, or do we use a private contractor?
We had a contractor lined up before. What happened on that day
Well, it's
was,
back in session, why don't we
Yeah.
get a court order?
well, we need to. And actually, Ward and I talked about this as well. An order from the Board of Legislators, Joan, you'd have to weigh in here, but an order from the Board of Legislators should be sufficient. If the guy is impeding business then that should be enough for, law enforcement to step in. Again, we asked for law enforcement to be there that day, they refused, and we're not helpful. That is the honest truth. So we've had to pull back because he kept getting close to the excavation equipment, and the contractor we had there was unwilling to work.
I understand where you're coming from, but let's have a discussion, see. if we
And let's
can
get it
find
going
some
again.
solutions.
I agree. Yep.
And Jerry, that was really the first time we had ever addressed that. As clearing the property, board checks was the first, and that was the second. Basically, they're back to back, and there was a learning curve. We truly do need to address that.
Pardon?
We truly need to have a procedure or a policy on how to do it.
Well, have you got one yet?
I wish I did.
Well, we'll help you.
Perfect.
We'll
bring something back with a little more, shine on it for the next committee meeting. We'll be ready.
Is there any other discussion in committee? Adjourn.
You gotta
Hold
go.
on, hold
You
on.
had the,
That goes, well, yeah, executive session. Okay, motion. Session.
Make that motion.
it's on a personnel matter.
I'm sorry, I got ahead of myself.
I'll second. You trying to do.
All in favor, aye? Can we have a 5-minute break?
Better.
I thought we were going to do it, yeah.